Well, hello, everyone. I should look in the right place. I've had a lot of devices in my time with cameras, different places. So sometimes when you see the start of a show, I'm looking around, where is the camera and what device am I using today? Hello, everyone. I'm Martha Novak, and we are doing a show called Real Talk with Martha Novak. And we're starting a new series today, which is going to be on relationships. Before we finish this series, we're going to have lots of information. You may want to have a pencil and paper ready, or a pen and paper, or sit at your computer and take some notes. There'll be some things that strike you, and you keep in mind that I'm not just talking about you, I'm talking about everyone that is trying to, number one, create a relationship, or two, that already has a relationship of whatever caliber. And we're trying to make you more aware of everything. Of course, being a good partner, having a good partner, it starts with being a good partner. We're going to talk about that as well. And there are many, many things to say. It is work. Hi, Kat. Oh, I'm so glad to see you this morning. I hope everything's going well for you. And now, let's move on to a prayer, and then we're going to launch into information, all right? I am live and in person. My guest call-in number is 347-850-1647. I really am only interested in taking very serious phone calls about this subject. I'm not interested in the little emotionally mature jerks that call in once in a while. It doesn't happen very often, does it? And it has a smart aleck thing to say. You know, these people seem to forget that I've got their phone numbers. Why would you do that and put yourself in the line of fire? I don't know. Sometimes people do. They don't think. All right, kids, let's go forward with some good information, and hopefully you all have some marvelous information to share, and we can talk all about it. All right, here we go. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are, and all everything is in this world, we thank you so much for the gifts we are receiving in this radio show right now. And certainly in the body of the talk, when we open ourselves to what you would have us know, what you would have us do as a next step, as a next release in us, so that we may be more of the channel for the aspect of you known as us. We seek our loving natures, dear God, and our kindness, and we open ourselves to these things on a deeper level of us. And we are not afraid. We have great courage. We realize a lot of our misperceptions are just that. And they were based on the child's mind. And now, as we are the adult, we're ready to know the truth and get beyond what we currently knew and our limitations, and live a dynamic life, giving love and respect and appreciation for all of life. We thank you so much, and we say this prayer now, saying that we know nothing, for it is the you through us and through all things that know it all. We listen to that aspect, and so it is. Amen. Okay. There are two things that strike me. Oh, by the way, I'm not sitting on my usual pillow because my dog is behind me. I'm trying to sit up as high as I can without sitting on the dog. He's a little worried about that. So I'm trying to get up higher. Guys, two things strike me about creating great relationships. Whether you are trying to, by the way, create one right now because you don't have one, or whether you are in one and just trying to make it better, two things strike me. The first thing is one needs to be realistic. You can't have fantasy going on. You can't even have, in a form of fantasy or expectations, you can't have expectations. Your house is going to be kept a certain way. You're going to have this response from your partner. You're going to do this. No, expectations are part of a fantasy system that's all in the head of the person that's creating that. Those things have to go. They pull a relationship down, because the fact is, this is real. The fact is, this is real, and it's work, and that work is a privilege or a burden. Which do you want to make it? Because you're the one. Hi, Lisa. You're the one making it one or the other. It's a burden or a privilege. Which one? You see? That's the first thing I want to say. Second thing I want to say is that if you think you're going to be in any relationship and not change substantially, it's not going to be a very good one. I think one of the nicest things we can do for our partner is open our minds to accept who they are and change ourselves, not to their specifications, that's certainly not what I'm saying, but to the best that we can be. The most loving, the most honest, the most patient, the most everything. Patience is a problem of mine from time to time, but I think I'm getting better. Those are important things. And I'll tell you something else. I don't think we're going to have a very good relationship if everybody isn't emotionally mature. What does that mean? Well, there are a lot of things it means. First of all, you're going to have to get rid of all the drama. And because so many of us are inured to drama, we came from very dramatic families where our mothers and fathers were dramatic, our sisters and brothers were dramatic, everybody's a drama queen. We don't even know we're in drama. But let me tell you, your feelings are going to get hurt. You're not going to get what you want in the moment when you think you want it. And you've got to be able to handle those things. You're not allowed to collapse with your hand over your forehead like Camille if you're going to be in a mature relationship where you all have to work out your differences. You can't take things personally. You have to be able to be a whole person within yourself and bring that to a good relationship. Because two people that are doing that make it a great one. So, we're going to talk in detail about a lot of this. Now, I'd like to start with how to create a good relationship. But this is not just for people who are single. This is for people who are already in relationship and how they can make it better. All right? So we're going to be talking about, don't just think I'm talking about one person, because I'm not a one kind of person. No, I'm not. I'm talking to all of you. If you are in a relationship, I want you to see your relationship and what you did and why you got into this. I want you to see it relative to this information. And I want us to change those premises in the next few weeks so that you're more open. You're more of the spiritual being in physical form that can heal and make good decisions within the body of the relationship, where you know what your boundaries are and what somebody else's are, right? You know, the interesting thing is the only thing my husband and I tend to argue about is when one of us steps over the line in terms of our values, you know? If I am doing something important and Michael criticizes me for it, I get real hot about it, and vice versa. something that's intrinsic to the individual, that person thinks is important, should never be attacked. I'm not saying we do attack. I'm saying that's one of the things. I mean, who are you? For example, I'll give you a good example of this. I am a woman, in case you haven't noticed. And as a woman, think of what we've traditionally done in our lives. We've been responsible for the health and healing in the family. A lot of the wisdom, right? We've been responsible for rearing the children. We've sometimes been responsible to be the medicine men and women in the tribe that helps. All right? There are many more things that we did, but let's just stay there. So what happens when your partner gets a cold and you try to help, saying, well, if I were you, I'd take this, this, and this, so we can head that off and it won't be so bad. I don't want to do that. What happens? I think you're going to say, wow, okay. Okay, that's an intrinsic part of me that this person that I love doesn't want. Now, here's my point. Do you go in like 60s and make them take it? You can't. No. You've got to be emotionally mature to walk away and realize, okay, it is their lives. It is their lives. Now, the reason I'm telling you this story is I want you to see the elements of it. You're hurt because somebody stepped over the line and disparaged what you do. Not as a person you are, but as the DNA you are. And that's okay. In an ideal world, it's not. If you're in that ideal world and in that fantasy, you're not going to be able to do this well. Because the point is, if they don't want it, you walk away. You walk away and you go make yourself happy doing something. You understand that? Good. In an ideal world, I think everybody ought to know who's in partnership that what they do is going to affect the partner and the relationship. But that's not the reality of the situation. We are not in an ideal world sometimes. Very important for you to accept. All right. When I say we all have to change, everybody is going to grow, but they're going to grow in their way. I want you to realize a couple of things as you are looking at potential partners. Will you? One of them is that's the best they're going to be. That's it. That's the best they're going to be. They're not going to be any better. They're presenting as the best they're going to be. So you better take a real good look at that. I do think that's enormously important. I'm looking for a piece of paper that I wrote something down on that I wanted to share with you. And I'm trying to find it right now. I know it'll turn up in my stack, but where in my stack is it? Oh, here it is. Okay. And so this is the best they can be, is what they're telling you. At least right then. They're presenting the best way they know how. And two is they're always going to tell you who they are in the first few dates. The problem here is when our need becomes bigger than our good sense, we discount what we're seeing because we need a partner, okay? I want you to know that's insulting when you need a partner. When you need a partner, it's insulting because anybody will do that meets certain basic criteria. You're not choosing that one. You see? You're not choosing that one. I'm going to give you some tips in choosing a great partner. Again, if you've already chosen, I want you to realize why you chose, and let's correct certain things. I'm going to, in future times, I'm going to tell you how to correct certain times. What I'm trying to keep you out of are the Four Horsemen. Do you remember the story of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse? One of them was death. Behold, a pale horse. And the rider was death. It's in Revelations. It's a metaphor in this case. There's a man named John Gottman who has done a lot of couples therapy. He's kind of the, good morning, Fabiola. He's kind of the new thing on the block. And we can talk about this in more detail. In fact, we will talk about this in more detail. Keep in mind that as we are talking about any subject, my job is not the job just to dispense information. My job is consciousness and enlightenment. I'm trying to open your mind to new ideas and to actually break some of your patterns if I confront you enough. So that's what we're doing here, okay? We're not just giving information. I think he's got some great information, but I would also want to frame it in terms of consciousness and what we're doing according to these shows. He says something I very much agree with, and that is you have to stay out of four things. One is, here they are, criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. Now, we're going to talk about those in a lot of detail. How you come to that and how you get out of that if you're in a relationship already. That is not today. Today, we're going to talk about how to, the right reasons to choose a relationship. Now, I'm going to challenge you with something. Here we go. Why do you, or did you, want a partner? And I'm not going to answer that until next week. I really want you to think about it. Why did you, or do you, want a partner? I will tell you there's only one right answer. There is a right answer in the ego, the highest self, and there are many answers that you think are right in the ego child's mind. And that's not where we want you to be to choose a partner. We want you to be choosing a partner in full consciousness and in the higher self. Okay? All right, here we go. Let's talk about some other things now. But we're going to start out the show next week with the answer to that question. I want you to answer it first. I think it's extremely important to realize yourself. The number one thing I can tell you right now is that you better know yourself well and get beyond a lot of your childhood issues for you to have a good relationship. I think God has given me the ability to see the difference because I married when I was emotionally immature the first time, and I saw everything I did, in hindsight, of course, and everything he did, and how it was a ridiculous stalemate. And now I'm married to a perfectly marvelous man, love of my life, and it's quite different for both of us. So it becomes very important for you to know yourself as you. Now, in that, you've heard me speak, and I think I mentioned this last week, about balance points. And I want you to do this exercise this week as well. I want you to make a list of what you cannot live without that belongs only to you. This isn't about another person. Nope. This is not a list that says I'm going to list the characteristics I want. Nope. 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 And did I say nope? This is about you. If you are going to live entirely alone the rest of your life, what do you love to make it worthwhile? All right, I'll tell you what Mine are, at least a partial list. I adore beauty. Beauty of all kinds. I like color. I like my house to be pretty. I like my clothes to be pretty. I love flowers. I love nature. Nature's a really big one for me. Animals are huge for me. I'm always going to have, I think I would just die if I didn't have a lot of animals around me. I adore animals. Hello. Hello, Dillip. You have to have animals around you. I have to have creativity. I have to have means to be creative. That's really important to me. It's one of my values, creativity. So I love words. I have to have words around me. I am not happy if I don't have books around me, either on my tablet or books. And I have quite stacks of them. I don't even feel very comfortable if I don't have something to read next that I'm looking forward to. You see? Okay. Those things are very important to me. And no matter who my partner is, by the way, or who your partner is, you've got to know what your points are that you cannot give up as a person, that you have to do to make you the whole person you are. Those are balance points. They keep your balance. Yours is going to be different from mine. Well, good. Certainly. That's the way life should be. But you should have them. And if you don't have them, that's a problem. Because what it means is you don't know who you are. It means that when you're in a relationship with someone, that there's no you, there's no essential you to have a relationship with or to be present within that relationship with. I'm not speaking very articulately, am I? You're not there, in other words. You're not there in the relationship if you don't bring yourself into it as the person you are. So you've got to find that out first. You have to have a relationship with you and be a good partner to you before you go on and create a partner for you. You see? And here's the truth. We're creating partners or potential partners according to our consciousness. So if you are emotionally immature, guess what you're going to attract? You don't know anything else. You can't bring anybody else in. If you don't know what makes a good relationship, you're going to attract somebody that doesn't know what makes a good relationship. If you're unaware and avoidant, you're going to attract somebody unaware and avoidant. This does not bode well for the future. You have to create a relationship in the right energy. Or you have to fix it later on because you didn't create it in the right energy. You may be alone, you may be in partnership still. I have many partners that I work with. I have many people that I work with that are partners that come in and we do couples and they've grown together. I know too that have made a tremendous success of it. Isn't that wonderful? That's not everybody. About a year ago, one of my psychologist friends sent me a couple, and they were the most hateful people I've ever seen in my life. Neither one of them was going to budge an inch. And I sent them on to somebody else. I don't want to work with somebody like that. What do I do for a living? My job is to get you to your loving potential. That's what I do. If nobody has any intention of going there, this is the wrong radio show, and I'm the wrong coach for them. Okay. So you have to be realistic. What stops you from being realistic? A lot of things. As I said, I mentioned expectations. When you have an expectation that for anything, it's you're going to be disappointed because it's a fantasy, you see. Let's talk about the elements of fantasy. One is idealism, where you have I can give you a couple examples of this. I know a marvelous woman who is very smart, very talented, very lovely. Her father gave her everything. She came from a very privileged background. Her father gave her everything. He told her he'd always be there for her. It was just going to be great. Even though she had other siblings, she knew she was special, right? All right. This was all a fantasy in her little girl mind. Completely. And so she goes on to marry a couple of people, and she tries to idealize them too. First marriage didn't work out. Second marriage is kind of in trouble. Yeah. She wants them to be an idealized father, but here's the fact. Even the idealized father wasn't the idealized father. Do you get this? He wasn't real. She's just sabotaged herself. She never married a real flesh and blood man that was not somehow pegged into that hole. I have another client, and by the way, this has nothing to do with gender. I'm going to tell you two examples of women that I know, but men do this too. All right? One of the women that I know, not a client, had a father who was an alcoholic. And he made everybody's lives miserable, as alcoholics do. But he doted on her. She was the apple of his eye. He died when she was 4. She hasn't ever been able to find a good relationship either, because she's looking for the idealized father. And he doesn't exist. As I said before, when you idealize, or when you don't see people realistically in whatever way, you're doing them a terrible disservice. I think it's a blooming insult, quite frankly. I want to be chosen, and I want to choose because I see the person standing in front of me as I want to be seen by the person that is standing in front of me. And I want that absolutely with all my heart. That we are there because we choose each other with our eyes wide open. Okay. So that's idealism. Another thing that gets us in trouble is romanticism. Now, I'm not saying that being romantic gets you in trouble. I am all for romance and being romantic. I think it's a beautiful thing. Little surprises that come into your marriage because you just love somebody, putting your arms around them at odd times. It's such a romantic thing to do, okay? Giving someone that kind of attention when they don't expect it. Very loving. But romanticism, you watch out for. Romanticism is when you won't see anyone realistically, that your neediness and your fear of being alone transcends your good sense. And I've told you that in the first 2 or 3 dates, somebody is telling you exactly who they are. And somebody who is locked into romanticism discounts it, never sees it, doesn't want it. And when I give this lecture and I'm in front of a live group of people, there's always a whole bunch of people that raise their hand and say, I married him, or I married her. No, again, insulting. You're not looking at them. They're not choosing you. You're not choosing them. For the people, the souls, the beings they are. These things must be put in place first if you're going to avoid being a criticizer, a defender, being full of contempt and resentment and stonewalling. You don't want that kind of partnership. All right. life is about change. That's, I think, one of the really important things that we should choose. And that is somebody who is willing to change, grow, deepen, become something, become other aspects of their higher selves. It's certainly something that I looked for. I knew my husband when he was 20. And I remember looking across my front yard. I don't know why this picture in my mind is so vivid. And he was not mine then. And I remember thinking, wow, he can be, do, think anything. And one of the things I liked so much about him was that he was open-minded. I mean, he had his own beliefs, which was great. But his mind was open as well. And that's what you're looking for, isn't it? Someone through the years who might get older, but whose mind is always open and young. Okay. Now, I found an article here. Those are the things I think, and I'm going to continue to pepper all of these materials that we talk about with my opinions. This is an article by Barton Goldsmith. Dr. Goldsmith is a PhD, and he's written 10 tips to help you pick a good partner. Some of which I agree with, and most of which I agree with, or I wouldn't be saying this, but I've certainly added some other thought to it. His first point is people will tell you exactly who they are. It's up to you to listen. That's what I'm saying. People are going to tell you exactly who they are in the first 2 or 3 dates. They may tell you in the first hour, all right? But it's up to you to investigate this, by the way. You need to see who their friends are, how they treat people. If you're sitting across the table from them, do they ever ask about you, or is it all about them? Okay? I know one woman who got in extreme trouble with this rather crazy man because it was all about him, and he was a psychiatrist. She thought immediately, she gave her power to him, he must know better than she is. He turned out to be crazy. For God's sake, do not buy into what people are saying. You look past who they are and their titles and how much money they have and everything else. Who are they? Who are they as a human being? And ask the right questions. I think as we get older, we are less shy about asking the right questions. I do have a friend and this is a friend who met a man online, and she never out and out asked him, why did you get divorced? It's become pretty obvious. I'd find out in the first 20 minutes. I want to know how they're going to answer really hard questions. Like, why did you get divorced? Who are you? Tell me something that other people don't know about you. What's the worst faults you have? Name 3. What's the best? Where are you going in 5 years? Where are you going in 10? What do you see for yourself? What do you think you have to learn on the inside? What do you think you have learned? What do you think you will learn? And I don't want anybody who can't answer those questions, and neither should you. And by the way, here's a thought. You need to be able to answer them yourself. Okay. It's not a question of, as this man says, as Dr. Barton says, of listening. It's a question of getting your ego child's mind out of the way and really hearing what somebody is saying to you. If you are sitting there going, oh, I hope he's the one, I so hope he's the one, oh, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss what he's saying. There is no one. How's that? There is no one. People come to me in the past, and they come to me and they say, will you tell me if this is the one? Oh, he seems so wonderful on the surface. And when I tune in to Spirit always says, I don't know, is he the one? Because it's your decision and his decision or her decision or both. I'm not talking sex here. I could care less about that. It is up to you all to make a decision, to decide to make this work or not. There is no one. If I take two people who absolutely don't know each other and I put you all on a desert island for 5 years, if you don't just out and out die, you'll probably be in love at the end of that. Shared experiences, a lot of time on your hands to get to know one another. Even if you start out hating each other, that won't last. It could. But knowing you and why you're listening to the show, that wouldn't last. Okay. Number 2. Dr. Barton says take a test drive. That doesn't mean hop into bed with someone. That's what I want to tell you right now. Do not have sex. How's that? Do not have sex. Oh, if you are trying to just have a good time, by all means, go and do anything you want. But here's the thing. It's going to be much harder to get out of a relationship if he's or she's not the one if you've already had sex. Personally, I don't know why anybody would have sex if they're not cared about. That's just me. I don't get it. And it's much messier on the back end. And anybody who wants to rush you into it, or if you find yourself wanting to rush to that, let me tell you right now, that's somebody who cannot deepen, who has no intimacy skills at all. None at all. You aren't going to get that. That's why they're rushing you. That's why you're rushing them. The point of this is to realize that's you, if it is, and do something about it. The interesting thing is, I have a lot of young clients too, right? And my young clients said, oh, you're the other generation. You know, you don't know what we're doing now. And I'm going to tell you something right now. And here's the truth. If you want a long-lasting relationship, the same rules apply that always have. And one of them is don't jump in bed with that person until you establish a relationship. Now, here's the thing. In fantasy, you're saying, I have a relationship. And all you've done is talk on the phone. I have a relationship. And all you've done is emailed over one of the dating sites. Oh, give me a bloomin' break. You don't have a relationship. You have a phone call. You don't have a relationship. You're meeting somebody for a cup of coffee. That's no relationship. Wake up. Same things, same rules apply to have a good relationship. Know someone. Find out whether they're trustworthy and kind. See if it's working. If it doesn't, let them go. And if it does, go to a deeper level. There's a lot to know about the other person and find out about you. But when Dr. Barton is talking about take a test drive, he's not talking about sex or living together. He's talking about going on a trip for 8 hours. One of the interesting things I've always known is I have gravitated for a long time to the south of France. I love the south of France. The color is fabulous. You know, think of what my balance point about color and creativity, right? Very rich place for that. Where I'm living is very rich for that too. And I noticed that whenever friends of mine who were in relationships with people went to some place of extreme beauty, it wasn't what happened to the relationship was rather surprising. In that extreme beauty, it's pressure. If you're in an extremely beautiful natural setting, it'll either break you apart or bring you closer together. That's the truth. So it's a wonderful test. 8 hours with someone is going to bring up how you do things. You know, I think when Michael and I came together again, we had a friend who was 100 years old or close to it, who lived in Florida. So within a few days of our knowing each other, we piled in the car to go down to see him and knowing each other again. And it was perfectly delightful. One of my favorite things to do is take a road trip with this man. He is so interesting. He's always interested in new things, right? He's showing me things that I'd never see if he wasn't here. It would just never occur to me to go see these things. And I think vice versa, by the way. One of the things I've noticed about us, I put this on the table for you, is Michael is one of the smartest people I know about outward things. Oh man, does he know everything? He's just brilliant. But I'm the one that knows about the inward things. And as long as we both respect that in each other, this is a great team. The problem comes when disrespect enters that relationship. You understand? And sometimes we disrespect because it's an old family trait. I know that there's a person that I very much tried to talk to about this, whose family trait, family humor, is sarcasm. A lot of times this comes culturally, you know. I think of my Jewish friends. They all love sarcasm, right? Sarcasm is a really destructive force in a relationship. You know why? Because the sarcastic remark, by its very nature, is saying, I'm smarter than you are and you're stupid. That's what is at the base of all sarcasm. That's not going to win friends. And it's certainly not going to deepen a relationship. So if you find that you're doing that, or your culture dictates that, and it's not just the Jewish culture that does that, everybody uses sarcasm from time to time, no matter what. Throw it out. It doesn't belong in your partnership. Okay. You want to see, I think the road trip that Barton is talking about has to do with how adaptable people are. When they're out of their home environment and they're not living by rote anymore, if that's what they're doing, how adaptable are they? How flexible? How, when things go awry, how fast can they recover? Huh? Isn't that interesting? I think so too. You find out a lot about people when you date. I remember dating a man that, before I met Michael, that took me out to eat. Very fine restaurant. We went out to eat. It was lovely. He had a brand new car. Was very proud of it. And when we came out into the parking lot to get in to go home, he had found he'd left his moonroof open and it had rained hard. The inside of the car was completely soaked. It was very interesting. I remember standing there and thinking, how interesting. This is going to be an interesting thing to see how he reacts to this. The interesting thing, I was very impressed with him because he went to the back of his car and he got a towel. That kind of alerted me. Has this happened before? He had a towel in his car and he wiped out the car. And he didn't say anything about it, and that surprised me too. He wasn't angry. He wasn't, oh, well, he wasn't much of anything. I did not continue to date him, but I must say I always wondered where his reaction went. You're doing this, guys, so you can see how people react to life. I'm going to tell you right now, do not believe a thing that anybody says. See how they live. See how they react to life. See how they live. So many of my clients who are single are enamored of people that seem to talk the consciousness game online, if they're online dating. They are disappointed every time. You're not looking for that. You're looking for a kind, good person who will work out problems with you. That's what you're looking for. That's what you should be looking for. Not a type, not a this, not a that. You should be looking for a kind, good, trustworthy, wonderful person. Okay, moving along. The next point is the number one thing that women are looking for. There's just been a study done on this in the last 2 years. Number one, you know what it is? Kindness. Kindness. That's the number one thing a woman looks for. I don't know what men look for. They may look for a variety of things. I think it has to do with how aware they are, according to what they want, you know? I think that's true for women too. But if you strip all the things away that confuse us and deceive us, I think that's what we all want. We want someone kind. They don't have to agree with us. They can have quite opposing views, but they're kind. We can disagree about a lot of things, but is there the climate of kindness? Now, here's the trick. Everybody interprets kindness a different way, you know? My darling husband, who is kind, doesn't interpret kindness as needing to say something as an acknowledgement that he heard me. That's probably going on with you too, because his language, his love language, we're going to talk about that in a little while. His love language is not words. Well, guess what mine is? Bingo. Mine is words. So if you could just give me a yes or no, that is interpreted by me as caring, as love, as kindness. You see? So these are the things you're going to have to work out with somebody when you get to that level, because we're all different. We all have to change. Does that mean he has to say and acknowledge something every single time? No, it doesn't mean that at all. It means that I would appreciate it as many times as he can do it, and I'll eat the rest. No problem. Hello, Sheila. Okay, Sheila has something very interesting to say here. She says, my husband was a little sarcastic when we met. We've been married 10 years on Friday, but his sarcasm has gotten worse. He tells me, well, I was sarcastic when you met me. He's kind and sweet, but let's see if I can get the rest of this. But the sarcasm is getting to me. Yes, Sheila. Someone once told me that sarcasm is when only one of you is laughing. The only way to fix this, my darling, is to have a talk with him and try to get him to understand what sarcasm even is. Okay? I give him the benefit of the doubt, certainly, that he's not using it to deliberately be cruel. If you have a good marriage, he's probably not. He's doing it because, number one, he doesn't think he needs to change. He doesn't realize something is wrong. He doesn't see how it's affecting you. He's not realizing what sarcasm actually says. okay? But with that said, and I don't know you and I don't know him, so I have to say this. There are people that are not going to let it go because they are trying to hurt each other. And sarcasm is a good way to do it. It's a passive-aggressive way, by the way. Passive-aggressive where they can't really be caught. Oh, that's just my humor, they hide behind, instead of the fact that they are being cruel and want to get back at someone. Now, I don't probably think that's you, the way you've described this. But you're going to have to sit down, and maybe you can find some articles on the internet about why sarcasm is not a good form of humor. And when you're talking to him, I would tell him the forms of humor that you absolutely love. You know, I think we have so many wonderful ways that we can make jokes and puns, and we have funny little quirky ways we see life, even when we're not trying to be funny. It's charming. I know that's one of the reasons I love my husband so much. He has a great sense of humor. He sees the world differently than I in many cases. But you need to put on the table, you know, and I think a lot of times when we try to talk to our husbands, and by the way, husbands that try to talk to their wives, they're saying something so intensely personal. You know, I mean, if sarcasm is part of his family, Sheila, he may not want to let the family energy go through that experience. And so you asking him to drop that, it's deeper than just sarcasm, right? So there are a lot of things here. It's just not an easy thing for us to get through. If I were you, I'd explore the reasons he's doing that. He may or may not even be able to talk with you about it articulately, but I sure would try, because I'd like to know what he's doing. And then I would say, here's how this makes me feel, darling. Here's an article on this, and I feel exactly like that. And I know you don't mean to hurt me, but you do when you say something like that, because I'm not stupid, and there's no reason for that. You see? I hope this helps, Sheila. It's not a, you know, I'm doing a radio show here, darling, and I have to answer it in the most general way that I can and give you as many thoughts as I can about it. However, one of the things we must know is these things are highly personal, and our makeup as individuals and why we're doing something, which is the important thing, not what we're doing, but why we're doing it. That's the important thing, is much more complex. You understand? So I hope that helped a little bit. And if I were you, I'd start an exploration. I'd look online about it. I'd print out some powerful articles that support your point of view, and then I'd have a loving talk with him. And I hope he's open to it. Okay? All right. So the number one thing that women want, according to this research, is kindness. I think that is honestly true. I'll tell you that I think that becomes more and more important as you age. Okay? Good. Okay. Sheila is writing back. Thank you, sweetheart, for clarifying this. She says, no, he's not cruel. He doesn't understand how it's hurtful. Well, good. Then that's a wonderful way. It's a protective measure from when his brother was killed in front of him. Oh, dear God in heaven. Well, yeah, I think he has to have a protective measure for that. Sheila, that's a wonderful thing. Thank you so much for sharing that. You know, I'm not the only teacher here, sweetheart. You all are for each other, too. And I'm so glad that he is not a cruel person and that it's protective. But the irony then becomes, why is he protecting himself from you, his best friend? There's no need for that. Let me put something on the table for all of you. I was going to talk about this in another week, but I think it's important for us to mention this. The number one thing, according to little Martha Novak, that pulls marriages down, and there are a lot of things that pull marriages down, but the number one thing is when people feel unsafe. Now, they can feel unsafe with each other for a lot of reasons. Believe it or not, you're feeling unsafe because of his sarcasm. When unsafety has gone unaddressed, and of course, you know, he would never hurt you. You're saying he's a wonderful, kind man. All right, we know that about him, but he's doing something that makes you feel unsafe. Over time, you know, give it 25 years, that's going to erode something lovely that you could have had. A part of your marriage, and doesn't necessarily lead to a divorce. It certainly could lead to a diminished trust and a diminished happiness. So I say these things are very important. Now, thank you for bringing this up, because here we are talking about choosing well. And I want to point out for all of you that that have not yet created a partner. You want a partner who's going to listen to you and whom you are going to listen to. You want a partner you respect and whom you can have dialogue with, and that you've got to tell the truth. I had a couple come in, this was several years ago, and this couple never argued. Never argued, but I could also see none of them ever told the truth. They were both angry as hell. Come on, kids. You want to be able to say anything to your partner and have them say anything to you and figure it out together. If you don't, you only have 3 choices. You can divorce. You can sweep that resentment and all those things I talked about, the criticism, the resentment, the blame, everything, under the rug. By 20 years go by, and you're going to have a nice pile under that rug, and not one thing is going to have a name, so you can't get to it. And you're going to have to live with that resentment for the rest of your life. Resentment easily moves into contempt. One of the most damaging things there is in a marriage. And the third choice is, as things happen, you can sit down and talk about it. So you make sure, and work through it, by the way, you make sure you have somebody, number one, that you can talk to about anything, and they can talk to anything about you. Emotional maturity again. And number 2, that they'll want to and make an attempt with you to work through everything. Call it by name within 24 hours. Now, sometimes, if Michael and I are hot about something, we don't understand why we're mad. So instead of belaboring things, we separate and we try to figure ourselves out. And in about 24 hours, 12 to 24 hours, we've kind of figured that out. By the way, this whole crap about don't go to bed mad, it's just bull. Forget that. You should go to bed mad. You've got to have some time to figure yourself out, and the other person needs time to figure themselves out. So all these cute little platitudes and, don't you believe them? This is a real world, and you've got real problems to solve to get to your own lovingness and your own forgiveness and your own kindness. Hopefully you've gotten a partner that's dedicated to doing that too. All right. I'm always curious in the kindness and lovingness department. How do they treat their mothers and fathers? How do they treat their mothers and fathers? And how do they treat other people? And how do they treat people that they don't need? I'm going to tell you a lot about the character of the person and what those values are. You're going to hear next week how your values pretty much need to match or be in sync with each other. You see? Okay. We'll talk more about that in the exploration of mommy and daddy as well, sisters and brothers. When you are looking around, my next point is choose someone who realizes that what they do affects you and the relationship and the longevity of the relationship. I myself could not have chosen a smoker. Well, thank you. Hello. I just got another message. Thank you very much. Thank you for saying you like my blouse. All right. I wouldn't have wanted a smoker. What my friends do is just fine with me. I've got friends that smoke and friends that don't smoke. They don't smoke in my house. That's very sweet of them. I appreciate that a lot. I haven't even had to make any rule, don't smoke in my house. People are very respectful of that. And isn't that a nice thing? Everybody knows I'm pretty health conscious, you know. My point of this is that growth is extremely important. You want to find somebody that makes you think and makes you better and makes you want to love more, and it doesn't pull you down. If I had been married to an alcoholic, which I am not, out of absolute love for them, I would not take a sip of alcohol or even have it in the house, probably. I'd make it as easy for them as possible. It wouldn't be about me. And it wouldn't be sacrifice. It'd be a privilege to live that way. You remember, it's either a burden, what you're doing, or a privilege. Which one's it going to be? One comes from the ego child's mind, one's the highest self. You'll have much longer and happier life if you will choose the latter, the privilege. I think it's a wonderful thing for you to be with someone who wants to become two. That doesn't mean that they have to believe what you believe or follow the same guru, or that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you choose someone who is exhibiting all the signs that you want. One of the things that I loved about Michael Novak when I met him is I would always have a date over to meet my friends, right? Because we were having classes. You know, I do classes every Saturday, so we'd have classes, and people would bring food and everything. So I wanted them to know my friend Michael, who had been a friend of mine for almost 50 years. And I looked over in the midst of this party, and he's doing the dishes. He's helping clean some dishes out, so we had some to put out. I looked across the room at him, and I thought, what a great guy. Because many of the dates that had come in, and there weren't that many of them, but, you know, the people that had come in would stand in the corner and wait for me to introduce them. And he was just plunging in, and he was everybody's friend from the start. Wasn't that nice? I thought so. I thought that was just a great gesture. One of the things I like about him at our age too is he's not going to get old. You know, once in a while he'll point out, ooh, that's kind of an old lady thing to do, or I'll point out, ooh, that's kind of an old man thing to do. And we do make the effort to do something else, to keep it fresh and moving and young and as vibrant as we can. And I love that. Also, science has done a lot of tests. There was one recently in the last, I want to say 5 or 6 years, and they found out that if they did a study on the longevity of couples. Guess what they found? It was something completely surprising to the researchers, to a lot of us, as a matter of fact, but it makes all the sense in the world. They called it this, so I'm going to give you the name, all right? They called the thing that keeps couples together the longest and the happiest is novelty. Now, what does that mean? The way this was used is that one partner lives their lives and is very interested in what they're doing. The other partner lives their lives and is very interested in what they're doing. And they find out about the world and they share information and they run back to each other and share it. That's the novelty they talk about. So what happens if you decide not to grow, not to change, not to open your mind, not to learn new things? What happens to that? Now, guys, that isn't something that happens in a marriage. Certainly it can when you give up your balance points, right? And you try to be whatever you're supposed to be that isn't you at all. That's not going to work. What happens is that sometimes we just leave ourselves behind. If in your childhood you abandoned yourself to survive, you better learn not to do it as an adult. It is the abandonment of self. Your partner hadn't gone anywhere. It's the abandonment of yourself that's the problem. If you recognize that as you, that's one of the things that you need to address with someone who can help you. In consciousness studies, my website is full of people that can help. I can help. All of us can help. There are people probably in your area that can help. We, by the way, work remotely. There are clients that I've never met in person. We do everything on the phone or over Skype. Dears, you gotta find yourself. This is what I mean by you being an emotionally mature person. And then have your own interests and develop what you're doing and then run back and tell your partner and share. Now, you know what? My husband's an engineer. I do not have an engineering brain. But you know what? I love to hear him talk because